the problem is waiting on the sidelines for the best time to invest. You might miss all the good times. And most people today would give almost anything to go back and invest at any point during that year.
Right.
Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show.
Chad, a wise person once said the three most expensive words an investor can say is "I'll wait until." You ever come across somebody that made a really expensive mistake by saying those words?
Yes, and I think a corollary of that is this time it's different. When we, I think, overthink things, and there's a tendency for people to, I think, overcomplicate things, to use complexity. I mean, do you see other areas of life where this could hold true?
I'll wait until. Yeah, I mean, we use a lot of fitness and physical health comparisons for good reason, and I mean that's low hanging fruit. But yeah, maybe it's I'll wait until the first of the year to get healthy, right? I'll wait until I'm in a better situation in order to improve my situation. I mean, that's still pretty broad, but I mean that as humans we kind of just have goofy thinking sometimes.
And when I mentioned, this time is different, that's something that it often is attached to the other side of that statement, where, yeah, I know I should stay invested all the time, or I know I shouldn't time the market, I know I shouldn't, but this time is different. So I want to wait until the election. I want to wait until interest rates go down. I want to wait until this market settles out. Just a couple of years ago, there was a guy, very intelligent guy, he's in the tech world, and it was more than a couple of years ago, because it was actually I think the 2020 election.
Okay.
And that was his. I want to wait until this election settles out. And there was a ton of volatility, earlier that year, but especially into the fall. And it's kind of one of those things. He's like, man, the market crashed for COVID. It had come up a lot just over the summer. In fact, it bottomed out, I think, in March. I don't remember the day, but by June, I think the market was already making new highs. By October, it looked like it was shooting the lights out. And he's like, no, it's going to crash. He's overthinking it.
Right.
And I think it's really easy for human beings to add complexity to distance ourselves from the responsibility of acting. So it could be, I'm not ready to start this business, I need to do more research, or I'm not ready to launch this product, we need to do a couple more iterations. And I'm all about preparing, but at some point you just need to do the thing. And you mentioned fitness, like, I'm going to research a little bit, not sure what gym, well, any gym is better than sitting at home and doing nothing. Or maybe do a home gym or research the treadmill, and this one has better reviews. And I think sometimes we procrastinate and make it look like planning or perfectionism.
Right.
So back to this guy in investing. So he wanted to wait until the election. And really, it was just, I think, a masking of fear, knowing what he needed to do. He had a lot of fixed income. He was sitting on the sidelines. He had missed a lot of the rebound and recovery. And I think a part of it was almost kind of that cognitive dissonance that he was feeling. He needed the market to decline to feel better about missing what he already missed. And to get in now, it basically locked in that lost opportunity. And of course, with the market is now, I think it's probably double what it was then.
Right.
So it's kind of one of those things that, you might not, there's no perfect time to invest. You might miss the best time that year, and there might be a better point. But the problem is waiting on the sidelines for the best time to invest. You might miss all the good times. And most people today would give almost anything to go back and invest at any point during that year.
Right.
Regardless of whether the market was too high for current valuations. Yeah, I mean, how much more could we invest if we could go back in time? We'd be scrounging for every dollar.
If I understand you correctly, let me know if I'm off base here, but I'm not going to say specific years, but is it possible or maybe even likely that I could, in any given year, go, okay, I don't want to invest right now because market's at an all-time high. I don't want to buy high. I'll wait until. And then it's true that it is at an all-time high, but then the next year it's at another all-time high, or 5 years later it's at another all-time high. Is that essentially what you're saying?
Most of the time, the market's at all-time high because it's cumulative.
So say that again.
Most of the time, the majority of the time, the market's at an all-time high. So it is likely, statistically likely, that next month the market will never be lower than it is today. And it doesn't matter what month you play this.
Right.
So statistically speaking, you are more likely than not to never see whatever the current price is again today, even if it's at an all-time high. And I don't know the actual statistics, but even, I might blunder this a little bit, but I think even at an all-time high, you are still almost twice as likely to never see a lower number than that.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, like even for a day.
Right.
So the market is based on valuations of companies. So it is cumulative. It's not like a home run title for a given year where every year every player is starting all over.
Right.
It's more of like a career base hits where, I mean, this breaks down a little bit because you can't get negative base hits, but if you're valuing companies on their total wealth and worth, that will gradually get bigger over time. It isn't something that starts a new cycle where, and it just, even if we stay on that metaphor, you know, you're pitching to Barry Bonds, he's already hit 65 home runs that year. You're like, huh, well, this is at an all-time high. I'm gonna throw right down the middle because he's statistically unlikely. No, it doesn't work that way. And there's a lot of pitchers that paid that price. I was not planning on using that metaphor, but it's that same thinking. It's like, because it's cumulative, you're going to continue to break that record. So if we kind of go back one more time, if you've got somebody that has, you know, a record for whatever that thing is, home runs, switching sports, touchdowns, rushing yards. Maybe rushing yards is a better example because rushing yards, you actually can go backwards. Right. You can lose. But if you break the record, what is it, 2,108 yards or something like that, Eric Dickerson?
It was like 2,183.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But if you break that record, every yard you get is going to break a new record.
Right.
It's at an all-time high. Are you going to stop handing the ball off because, well, you know, it's at an all-time, he's likely to lose more yards. That doesn't work. It doesn't work in the market.
And so if somebody is expressing this, you know, deep reservation to jump in and invest, and this is their reasoning, is because, well, I don't want to buy high. I just want to be clear for those listening. You are not telling people that it's not necessarily at an all-time high. It might very well be. You're emphasizing it will almost certainly be even higher as time goes on. I mean, I know this it might be overly simplistic to those in the industry, but I think for a lot of people listening, they may not realize that.
And this is a long-term problem. It's a long-term game. We need to worry less about current valuations based on this week, this month, this year. Maybe the market's already gone up a lot this year. You're like, oh man, it's time for a dip. Well, okay, now you're market timing.
Right.
It feels too high compared to what? Compared to how it's always been. And most of the time, regardless of whether the market goes down or up in the next short block of time, most people, most likely, looking back on where we're at right now, 5-10 years down the road, would be drooling over these current prices, wishing they had invested more. Just like this guy who wished he had never pulled out to begin with. And unfortunately, he never became a client. He couldn't take the plunge, so to speak. He was waiting until kept getting pushed back. The election passed, the market was up. He was waiting for that perfect time to enter in. And last time I talked to him, he was still sitting on the sidelines. And it was a mistake that had cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Super nice guy, super intelligent.
Yeah.
And I wish the best for him. But he had made a fundamental error and was timing. And people need to understand that time in the market is far more important than timing the market. So I do not care which direction the next 10% swing is going to be. If it's positive, negative, next 20% swing, don't care. What I don't want investors to miss out on is the next 100% swing. And we do know which direction that's going to be. It's just a matter of time. Well, Logan, I think even more than, this individual, and obviously this very particular story about a very particular person, who was not lacking in discipline. He was not lacking in intelligence. He had saved very, very well, but he didn't invest well. Those are two different things. He did the hardest job, which is putting aside the money every month, but he didn't stick with that long-term plan. And even though that was a very specific example, every year there is, in the broader scheme of things, there is an excuse. I'm going to wait until this thing clears out in Iran. I'm going to wait until tariff stuff gets figured out. I'm going to wait until the Fed announces new interest rates. I'm going to wait until. It's never too late or too early to do the right thing. And if you're waiting for a convenient time to invest, then you'll always be on the sidelines. You're always in the midst of a storm or looking at a storm cloud creeping along the horizon. Sometimes the storm cloud hits, sometimes it doesn't. But there is never an easy time to invest. And that's just what's happening in that world out there. We also have to look even in our own world.
Right.
I will wait to invest until I get the pay raise, until I save up for this other thing or buy that. Like that's just on the external world. On the internal world, there's even more things that we give excuses. This is expensive month for me, expensive season. I'm traveling a lot, whatever things. I'll wait until. And if we're not careful, we end up pushing off the good thing, waiting for perfect.
Yeah. And going to the, kind of what's going on inside your own household, what's going on ground level in your life. It is something where I think it's a tricky balance of, where's that line between, there is, you even referenced it earlier in our conversation, there is a time for prep. There is a time to, triage, put out fires, whatever. There is a time for that. Even, Dave Ramsey, right? In the baby steps, there's a time to put out fires before you start investing. And I think about on a personal level, there are times where, Carrie and I need to pull back from certain, ministry and outreach things because we need to work on internal things for a little bit. But at the same time, it's also true that it's never going to be convenient to just carve out hours in a week to give our time to somebody. We might want to do it, but it's not going to be convenient. So it's a tricky balance. And I think that principle, again, going back to the Dave Ramsey thing, we see it in finances, right? Are there other examples that come to mind beyond just, well, if you've got, $20,000 in credit card debt, you probably shouldn't be pouring into investments yet. Are there other examples like that?
Sure. And I think we need to not look at it as black and white. We look at it as, I'm the type of person who always serves the future version of me.
Okay.
And let's assume that you got your budget in order, your debt's eliminated or at least very well managed. You got that pared down to maybe no more than your mortgage. Bare minimum, you want to be getting what your employer matches.
Okay.
Like even if you have to cut it down to just that for a season, and there are legitimate reasons to do that. Maybe I'm saving up for a house, or you've got somebody like, we'll have 4 teenagers later this year. We very easily could have 3 or 4 kids in college at the same time. So for people in that situation where it's this really tight season where I may not be able to invest at the same level because for a season I've got these expenses, but we need to make sure that we keep the habit going. It's a lot easier to direct that money, some of that money temporarily. Let's just say somebody's saving $1,000 a paycheck, and they need to replace a car. They pull that money out of the emergency fund, but they need to build that emergency fund back up. That's a really good reason for redirecting that money.
Right.
But you give that money a specific job for a season, and it should have parameters around that. And I'm just making this up as I go. I'm not saying these numbers should apply to anybody or everybody. But let's just say, so you buy the new car, your emergency fund goes down from 40,000 to 10,000, 30 grand is what you spent. So I'm going to cut my saving from 15% down to 5% because that's what my employer matches until I get my emergency fund built back up at 40,000. It should take me until whatever, October, and then I'm going to switch it back. That's just a lot different than it's not a good time for me to invest. And that, because you end up, there's no clear plan to stop and then to start again. It's just not convenient. But in that situation, I've given myself very clear parameters, and I've told that money exactly what it should be doing. It isn't hiding in my budget somewhere.
Yeah, you're using the exact same muscle for a slightly different exercise, maybe, but it's the exact same muscle, and
you're redirecting.
Even though
you're not stopping.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt. You're not stopping. You're keeping the habit going, but you're redirecting some of that effort, knowing that effort, as soon as you hit that metric, will be routed right back to where it was.
And even though, as you said, you're kind of making up the numbers, but to that principle, for anybody listening that may not realize that if you're in that spot, whether it's for a car or house or whatever, I mean, shoot, I would say go ahead and talk to your employer, or talk to whoever you need to get this done. Literally have that money come out of your paycheck and go to a separate bank account, to where it is literally every 99% of your behavior is the exact same, or your behavior is 100% the exact same. The only difference is it's not going to your 401k right now. It's going to your Wells Fargo savings or whatever. But yeah, you don't even need to budget it. You can literally just have it directed to a different bank account.
And just to circle back though, kind of where we started with this though, most of the times where we get pushback on this, I'm waiting until, it is more about external events.
Right.
So I do want to bring us back to that, because a couple of the things that I wanted to point out, but the internal side, that is important, and it's really easy to come up with excuses. We had an episode a few months ago with Tim Tillman that years and years ago, probably close to 40 years ago now, he had just gotten his job with FedEx, phenomenal retirement system, but his daughter had cancer.
Yeah.
And he knew a couple things. Number one, that was not going to be a short-term battle.
Right.
And he knew that even though his baby girl was battling cancer, that he had to at least begin that habit, because probably for the next few years, there was not going to be another convenient time. And he had every excuse that he was newly married and with a new kid, and that new kid had a potentially fatal disease.
Yeah.
And still, that's pretty extreme. And did he optimize everything? No. But he started the habit because he knew it was going to be a long time before things in his life were going to calm down. But back to kind of the external, right now, I think a lot of the talk is, market's at an all-time high. I was talking to somebody, a referral, maybe about 6 months ago, 12 months ago, who was concerned about that back then. Because the same thing was true, even though we're 20-something% higher when I first had this conversation last summer. Market was all-time high, and she'd been told her entire life that, as you get closer to retirement, you load up on bonds, and we've talked about this in the podcast. We've talked about the danger of fixed income in a rising cost world, and we don't need to rehash all that. People can check out earlier episodes. But one of the things I asked her, and I wish I had asked this to more people sooner in my career, but right now the market is, let's say it's an all-time high. If the market crashes, goes down 20% in a few weeks, gives you exactly what you're asking for, do you think you'll have any more confidence to jump in then? And there are a handful of people like, yes, that's exactly what, but realistically, I think it's just a good question for people to think about. You want the pullback. You want whatever to happen. And again, it could be an election. It could be all kinds of different things. What people are really looking for is a green light and the handwriting on the wall that says, okay, Logan, this is the perfect time to invest.
Right.
That never happens. So you have to think about, like, if I get what I'm hoping for, everything on the news is bleeding red. The market crashes. Everybody is screaming gloom and doom. If you can't invest when the news looks decent, at least, again, there's always a storm cloud on the horizon, but when the storm has hit and you're in the midst of a monsoon, do you really think you're going to want to invest then?
Have you had somebody where you've been in that conversation, where whether you talked with them before or not, but like, yeah, things are looking tough, or at least the market is down quite a bit, and you've got somebody that is going, "Ooh, I don't know if I'm ready to get in right now."
Oh, absolutely. Like, so the market's down,
Yeah.
and they're waiting for the news to get better, whatever. That's
Even though the math should say you should get in right now.
yeah.
They're just-
And that's if you can't invest when things are going reasonably well, you're almost for certain not going to invest when the market crashes. I'm sure people do it, but the people who call us when the market is down and saying, "Hey, I want to add extra to this account, or I want to increase,"
Yeah.
they are increasing what they're already doing. They're already investing. But what they've done is they've realized the best companies in the world are on sale. I'm going to make sacrifices elsewhere. You know, maybe we'll delay replacing the car so we can invest that $30,000. Maybe we'll push back a vacation. Like, they're making real sacrifices, or just, okay, maybe we have more cash on hand than we need. But the people who take advantage of those situations, to a person, I can't think of a single situation, somebody who's waiting on the sidelines, not investing.
Right.
The market crashes. Say, okay, I'm going to jump. I'm sure it's happened.
Right.
I just can't think of a single person.
That's not a human tendency, even though that's what people say that they're waiting for.
Yep. It doesn't happen. Now, we do have people when the market crashes, we do have our clients that reach out and say, I want to invest more.
Yeah.
But these are people who are, again, they've made the habit, and maybe they're willing to stretch a little bit further because they see the opportunity, but they were never scared to begin with. And people won't call it fear. They won't say, I'm afraid to invest. They think that they're being intellectual about it, but really I believe it's an emotional thing. It's an emotional block. So it is very, very hard to get somebody who is already fearful about investing to have confidence when everybody else is screaming and saying that the sky is falling.
Yeah. What's another? I do think, the market being at an all-time high or at a low point. I mean, that definitely makes sense. That's a huge factor in human behavior when it comes to investing. What's another external factor that plays into this, I'll wait until type mindset? What else have you seen?
Most recently we've seen stuff on interest rates.
Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, waiting for an interest rate announcement.
Okay.
So interest rates, typically, if interest rates drop, then at least in the short term, the market might respond favorably.
Okay.
In the long run, it doesn't much matter. If interest rates rise, that can disrupt. It's really about expectations too. If the general consensus is the interest rates are going to rise, and they stay flat, like that might even cause a temporary jump because they were expecting. So many variables, but in the long run, all that stuff washes out. It doesn't really matter. And sometimes you blink, you miss that anyways. And how long are you gonna wait to maybe get a 3 or 4% bump that you have to jump on? You might be sitting on the sidelines as the market appreciates 10 or 15%, so you can get that quick 2% bump. Like, that's not good math.
Right.
I mean, right now, as we're recording this, there's all these start-stop with peace deals in Iran. I haven't been around for a super long time, but ever since I've been alive, the Middle East has been a pretty volatile place on earth. And reading through Isaiah earlier this morning, which was written, gosh, I don't know, 3,000 years
45
ago.
years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Middle East was pretty violent and uncertain back then too. So if you're waiting for the Middle East to be peaceful to invest, then you'll be dead before you ever invest. And pick your region of the world, whatever it is. But right now, that's the thing. Right. It's, well, they're really close to getting a peace deal done. Well, two things on that. It might never get done.
Right.
And if it does, any discounting will probably disappear because the market is very much an anticipator. If there is a lot of uncertainty, it's already baked into the cake. So if there's a chance that we go to war with this, if there's a chance of a recession, all those potentials are typically already baked in. I'll just give an example. Back in 2009, the market bottomed out March 9th, 2009. The S&P 500 bottomed out, 57% decline from October 9th, 2007, March 9th, 2009. We didn't come out of the recession. We didn't even turn a corner until almost the end of that year. And it wasn't announced, I don't believe, until 2010.
Okay.
So point being, not only did the economic situation not turn around, it was getting worse for several more months as the market was recovering. I think by the time Obama announced that we had basically turned a corner, the market had gone up, forgive me, let's say about 30%, could have been 28, could have been 32, but close to a 1/3 increase, because everything that might possibly happen, those chances, those probabilities are already baked in. And it wasn't, in that case, it wasn't that things were getting better. Things were getting worse more slowly. That's when the market turned.
Gotcha.
So it makes it impossible to time. It just goes back to what we've always said, that there will never be a calm, comfortable time to invest. This world is a fallen, wicked place full of turmoil and uncertainty. So yeah, right now the war is the big thing. Last year it was tariffs.
Right.
And in between that, there's bankruptcies, there's SpaceX IPOs. There's always something big going on. And again, this time it's different. Yeah. We've never quite seen this before. I want this to play out. And really what people are wanting is certainty. And that doesn't exist in this world.
Yeah.
And if you try to find it, you're going to pay a very, very high cost to get certainty. So never be afraid to do the right thing. Don't wait for perfect. Just do good and do good consistently.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Anything else you want to tell the person that's thinking, I'll wait until?
Well, I think that was a lot of it. It just is, don't wait for the perfect time because they'll never get here. And people who are successful, not just in finances, but anything, they are rarely perfect, but they execute the good consistently and relentlessly. Now you do that enough times, you'll do the perfect thing at the perfect time every now and then.
Right.
But mostly it's not. But if you consistently do the right thing, chances are whatever that thing is, whether it's in your marriage, in your parenting, in your business, but we'll talk about finances here, you're consistently investing in good fun. You will invest through some really, really difficult periods. And that's when investors make the most money, when uncertainty is peaked, when it's not at its highest, because who knows what that even means.
Right.
But when uncertainty is pronounced, that's when people do the best. It's just they don't realize it until months, maybe even years down the road. So you have to kind of trust the process and do consistently what most people will only do occasionally, and you're going to get pretty good results.
Good stuff. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us two quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.